Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Courtney Ryan, and today I'm going to be talking about the worst places to go for a first date. So a first date is kind of like a fun interview. You want to put your best foot forward, you want to show up being your best self, but it's fun because you're just getting to know someone that you might potentially have a romantic interest in and vice versa. So it's more fun than an interview, obviously, but there's still some things you want to consider when you're going into a first date. So the reason why choosing where your first date is going to be is so important is because it kind of sets the tone for the entire date. You wouldn't want to go to something super serious and put a lot of pressure on things. You don't want to go somewhere loud where you guys can't talk and get to know each other. The whole point of a first date is having that one-on-one connection with someone and being in an environment where you can really get to know them and let your personality shine. So today I'm going to be going over the 5 worst places to take a first date, and if you guys would like to see a video on the best places to take a first date, I would be happy to do that as well. So let me know in the comments down below if that's something you'd be into. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps me out, which in return will help you out, and I do appreciate it. So number 1, we have the movies. So back in the day, I think the movies were probably a great place to get to know someone. That was probably one of the only things there was to do, but now there's so many other things and places you can go that the movies is just very cliche. But not only that, it's hard to get to know someone when you're sitting next to them in silence for 2 hours. So like I mentioned earlier, the whole point of a first date is to talk to someone and be able to get to know them, talk about different things. And if you're sitting in silence watching a movie next to a person you've never met before, maybe this is the first time you guys are going out, you're not going to be able to get to know anything about them unless you have some other aspect of the date planned as well. So maybe if you were going to dinner and then a movie, it might be a little bit better, but even then I wouldn't recommend a movie for a first date necessarily, because I think on a first date you kind of have a little bit of anxiety, your nerves are a little bit high. I know I was always that way on first dates. I would get really nervous for things like that. So if I'm sitting in silence next to someone I don't even know for 2 hours, my anxiety is just heightened. I feel anxious the whole time and I can't even enjoy the movie. I know not everyone is that way, but I personally am, and it's just really unenjoyable. So movies fine later on, maybe a couple dates in. I actually don't even know if movie theaters are open right now, but I would just avoid this on a first date. Number 2, we have back to your place. So I think the reason for this is not wanting to rush things. Okay, so I've mentioned in the past that a girl that wants to rush things with you is kind of a little bit of a red flag, and I think girls sometimes view asking you to come back to her place the same way. So if you're just out for a hookup, I think that's a totally different thing. That's not really a first date. But if you're going for a first date, some girl you really like, you really don't want to rush things, you're taking things slow, I would avoid going back to your place at all cost. You want to leave a little room for imagination, you want to leave a little mystery, and honestly, the space that you live in is kind of an intimate thing to open up to somebody. So if you don't even know if you like this girl, you don't want to spend 3 hours cleaning your entire house for her to come over. So a couple dates in, I think this is totally okay to invite them into your space and to get to know them a little bit more intimately that way, but on a first date, I would not do this one. I always think it's better to meet someone for the first time in a more public setting. Maybe that's just me being paranoid, but I watch way too many crime shows and listen to way too many crime podcasts to ever go to someone that I don't know's house on a first date. Number 3, we have a formal dinner, a fancy dinner, just something that's gonna put a ton of pressure on you and empty your wallet quite a bit. So if you've never met this girl, this is your first time hanging out with her, you don't even know if you really like her yet, and you're already signing up to spend a ton of money on her if you take her to a really fancy restaurant, somewhere very nice where the bill's gonna be like $200, I would just recommend going somewhere really casual and somewhere pretty chill for a first date. That way you aren't spending a ton of money on someone that you don't even know if you like. Also, sometimes you can tell pretty early on in a date if you're vibing with someone or not, if you like them. So if you're locked into a fancy dinner, often those are drawn out a little bit longer than if you went to brunch or if you just grabbed coffee somewhere. So you're kind of locked into that meal with them, and if things aren't vibing, you aren't really liking them, it could be awkward, and then you've locked yourself into a long meal with this girl. I will also say one of the reasons I recommend going somewhere very casual, going somewhere very chill, is because if she doesn't appreciate the inexpensive things, the casual things, if she's making it seem like you need to take her out to a 5-star restaurant and spend $500 on her on the first date in order to please her, then you probably shouldn't go out with her. And I will also say here, I know times are different now. I know sometimes women like to split the bill or they like to just pay in general. And while I think that's totally okay, maybe later down the road, second date, third date even, I think for the first date, I have a very traditional view on this, but I think for the first date, the guy should pay, especially if he was the one that asked her out. So maybe if she asked you out, then you'll be fine with her paying. If a girl wants to pay, I think you should let her. That's totally up to you and your date. But personally, if I'm going out on a date with someone that asked me out, I'm expecting him to pay. Number 4, we have the bar. So the bar is just kind of a recipe for disaster, especially on a first date when those nerves are a little bit higher. I think then the tendency to drink a little bit more might be there. So this is just signing up for things to get a little bit sloppy. So not only that, but bars are often pretty loud and just kind of chaotic. So it's hard to get to know someone when you're screaming at the top of your lungs, trying to talk over other people in order to hear what that person is saying. So like I said, somewhere chill, somewhere casual. Instead of going to get drinks at a bar, maybe go to a coffee shop instead, because it's going to be a lot more calm and collected there. So if you and your date have decided you want to get drinks, that's totally fine. Everyone's into different things. If you're more of an alcoholic beverage person over a coffee person, totally fine. But I would just recommend going to a setting that is not a bar. So you could easily grab a drink at a brunch or a restaurant, a glass of wine, something like that, that's just not so chaotic. Last on my list, we have a +1. So this one I think is a little bit different, but what I mean by it is don't bring your date as a +1 to something. So that could be a +1 to a wedding, a +1 to a family dinner, a +1 to a high school reunion, just something where you're bringing a date. I would not recommend that as a first date with somebody. So your first date with someone should just be the two of you. You shouldn't be bringing along your entire family or all your friends from high school, meeting up for the first time in 3 years. I think it is just better to have that one-on-one connection, especially for a first date. So my friend that actually got catfished, like I told you in one of the last videos I did, another story from him, he went on a first date with a girl and her mom came to the date. And he literally is sitting there meeting this girl for the first time with her and her mom, and he ended up paying for her and her mom. I just think that is the weirdest thing ever. He thought it was bizarre. He ended up not talking to the girl anymore because she brought her mom on another date. It was just the weirdest situation in the whole world. I won't get into details, but it was odd. And it's just weird to bring a family member on a first date or invite her over to your house on a first date, meet your family on the first date. You should be trying to figure out if you even like this person one-on-one and not including other people in your life. So guys, that is all I have for today. If you liked this video or found it helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for when I release new content. Let me know in the comments down below what you think the worst place to go on a first date is. Would also like to hear some of your best first date ideas as well. Also be sure to follow me on Instagram at Courtney Christine Ryan. I love connecting with all of you guys on there as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.